Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we'll be continuing our mod highlight series. Today's mod is Vampire Core Factions Extended by Blaze90, a work in progress mod which promises to update not only the Von Carstein factions, but also Manfred's vampire counts and Kemler's barrow legions. Each of the factions will get their own unique mechanics. Not only that, they will also have their own unique characters, units, and so on. Essentially, what this mod does is turn every single active playable vampire count faction into its own sub-factions, with its own unique style of play. You will also notice on the character selection screen there is also another faction. You see, Blaze90 has also decided to revive Alluvian's Ordo Draconis faction overhaul mod, as it was discontinued a long time back and was a popular fan favourite among subscribers. So this mod not only gives you changes to all the currently available playable factions, but also brings back a much beloved mod. But let's not waste any more time and check this mod out. Just as a quick note, we won't be checking out Alluvian's Ordo Draconis mod, as we've already covered this mod a few months ago, or weeks I believe. We'll begin this mod review with the generic Vampire Counts faction. The changes will become apparent as soon as you start your campaign, where you'll notice most of the changes through your construction tab, a few new buildings and a lot of new units specifically for Sylvania. A few thematic choices will come into effect here, a lot of units surrounding the Knightly Order of Black Knights, and a few other units here and there, mostly skeletons of course, which takes us to something of importance to note. Bear in mind you will need to build the building known as the Hallow Ground, which produces a new resource, Bone Piles. This is of course if you want to recruit skeletal units, as all skeletal based units will require bones to be built. Unless of course you're summoning them through the Raise Dead mechanic, but generic recruitment is focused around this resource. It might not seem like the most interesting thing, but once you start seeing the higher tier units, for example the Black Knights themselves, you can see why. Your technology tab will stay relatively the same. You will notice however that every vampire count faction will now get access to Alluvian's Ordo Draconis research tree too. A few buffs to Blood Knights and so on, which could be proven useful in later game. A new generic lord is available for the Vampire Counts faction, the Skeleton King. This, in all intents and purposes, is the lord variant of the White King itself, and thus on the battlefield it should have a similar role, barring the fact that it could lead armies. Stat-wise it's very much the same, however what sets it apart is two unique skill trees. One which focuses around buffing up the character itself, via stats and self-made buffs, and the second focusing around a quite massive amount of reduction to upkeep to certain units. These buffs have the following effect, which is mostly around reducing upkeep by 15%, but then also increasing the melee attack, armor, speed and charge bonuses of certain units. It can be quite powerful. Moving on to Heinrich and his forces, the first thing we'll notice is that his generic skeletons have also been given a visual update, to represent the fact that these are Bretonnian skeletons. You will notice more changes when you enter the construction tab. You will get access to a few shared units between you and the vampire counts, but you will also notice new buildings and a complete new unit tree, whereas this army focuses more around skeletal spectral units more than anything else. Heinrich has an army of ghosts surrounding him and you are able to use this to your heart's content, and they will fulfill all your battlefield roles, so if you want to ignore the monsters and generic skeletons and zombies from this army, you can do so and field only spectral armies. As Heinrich is very much alone in his faction, you will get access to 3 new custom legendary spectral lords, which we'll start to check out now. The first legendary lord is the Dread King, a hybrid melee spellcaster who focuses more around buffing up your armies. He has access to the lore of vampires, but his main focus should be the buffing skill tree, where you can turn even your basic undead units into a pure force to be reckoned with. Some of these buffs themselves even work faction-wide, which yeah, can be a bit overpowered, but then again, since you're surrounded by a large majority of Bretonnians who will most likely declare war on you, you will need every help that you can get. Though there are some overpowered skills which will reduce the upkeep of certain units by 25%. Next we have the Wraith of Hardak, a spectral Tomb King. This is a pure spellcaster lord, which has access to the lore of vampires and the lore of Nehekara. As this is a Nehekaran, you will get campaign benefits which will increase diplomatic relations with all Tomb King factions. You will also get benefits in regards to ammunition bonuses to skeletal archers. And you'll have access to either a Casket of Souls or a Kembrian War Sphinx as your possible mount options, meaning that you'll get access to some very tasty artillery. The third and final legendary lord is Maldred, the Shadow of Musilon. This is indeed your basic melee lord. We have loads of spellcasters, so it was nice to see a melee-based legendary lord being implemented, who's also got access to a spectral steed, a spectral griffin, or a terrorgeist. Most of this character's unique skills focus around the buffing of Bretonnian units. However, I'm not sure if I'm having a bug or not, but I've not seen the ability to recruit Bretonnian units. It could be that this is a possible future update for a later date. You'll also get access to a new generic Lord character, which interestingly enough is also just called a Lord. It serves as your basic fighter character, where yes, you can have a normal vampire, but if you want to focus around the theme around skeletons and ghosts and so on, this is probably the best way to go. Moving on to the Von Carsteins. Once again, you'll get access to some new skeletal based units, but the biggest change here is that you'll be able to now recruit humans. It's known in the lore that Vlad made use of both undead and human armies, so it makes sense for him to be able to recruit them. You're going to get an army very much similar to a stripped down version of the generic Empire roster, which once again makes sense. Bear in mind, to be able to recruit humans, you will need to be able to gain a new resource known as influence. This influence resource does not work in the same way as the High Elves. Instead, building up your basic Sylvanian fort will allow you to get a decent amount of influence per turn. As we're able to recruit human units, we can also get a generic human character. An Empire General is available for us to recruit as the Von Carstein faction, which makes sense thematically at least. There's not much to go through here, as well the character itself is based on the Empire General from the vanilla Empire factions. Now I want to give my individual thoughts as we look towards all the units added to each respective faction, first with Manfred von Carstein's Vampire Count faction. So there's not a lot to speak about this. Manfred himself always wanted to create a world enshrouded in darkness, and now he's got a legion to back him up on this. The units are fairly well done, well balanced, and they look great visually. My only real complaint is that there are a lot of horsemen, where the faction itself starts to feel more like an undead Bretonnia more than anything else. That being said, the footmen, which are the Black Knights with various different gear, look absolutely fantastic. I think it's a great way to make use of the Depth Guard assets. The Von Carstein faction, on the other hand, feels like what the Von Carstein should have been originally in its vanilla state. I've spoken about this many times in many videos, and I still stand by it. The fact is that this is a thematic thing that should have always been the case, and I think it's represented very well throughout this mod. Stat-wise, everything feels fairly balanced, and the new cultist units look fairly good. My only real issue, which is more of a thematic and aesthetic point of view, is that they should have more Sylvanian colours. A lot of purples and whites more than anything. Again, this is a personal preference, but I was a type of person who built up and painted up my own Sylvanian force, so not seeing them from that is disappointing. However, that does not affect any view that I have towards this mod. And lastly, we have Kemlers Forces. Now bear in mind that when playing this faction on custom battles, there is a bit of an issue where a lot of things get jumbled, where for some reason you're able to recruit certain legendary lords multiple times with their different mount options and so on. However, moving forward, everything looks okay. Stat-wise, everything is balanced, barring the fact that obviously you have a full army of ethereal units, which can be a tad overpowered. My only real issue is that I'm not a really big fan of ghosts, so to me personally, a full ghostly army is kind of boring visually. Again, that's just my opinion, I'm just not a big fan of it, and I think that certain units, like for example some Vampire Coast Gunners, should not be part of this list. Other than that, the faction plays well, and yeah, it is a unique experience. Playing with a full ghostly army is obviously extremely different, and you can use it in certain ways. Of course, if you're fighting against magical enemies, or anything with magical weapons, you will suffer, but then again you need to plan ahead. Personally, I'd say if a few more monsters were implemented rather than so many ghostly units, the faction would be a lot better, but once again this is just my opinion. The legendary lords themselves were a nice touch, seeing as Heinrich himself is actually by himself, better yet said, it helps to have some extra choices, so you won't have to worry about losing all your armies and having your characters die off. Now having some extra legendary lords will benefit you greatly. Perhaps they need a bit of fine tuning however, as some of their skills are a bit overpowered. But as I said during the beginning of the video, this is a work in progress mod, so keep your eye out. However, if you'd like to try it out, you can find a direct link to it in the description below. And if you'd like to recommend any mods to be possibly featured on the channel, you can always recommend one in the comments below. Or may I suggest joining the Great Book of Grudges official Discord, which you can find a link also in the description below, where it's much easier to get in contact with me. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons, your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.